Hi guys, and welcome back. So today we're going to be kicking off with the second in our Masques series, and we're looking at the Veiled Path. They're pretty much the epitome of never trust an elf. They are deceptive and use lots of trickery and find ways on the grand scale of things to make armies attack each other rather than actually losing their own troops to it. So let's dive into them. So the Veiled Path, Riddlesmiths. At the start of each fight phase, roll 2 dice and discard the highest result. Until the end of the phase, each time your opponent targets a unit with this form and makes a hit roll that before modifiers exactly matches your dice roll result, that hit roll fails. So this is an interesting one. It's a bit random, so you don't really know what's going to come out of that one, particularly with the +1s to hit and all the rest of it. I'm not sure how that works with modifiers because I don't tend to use Veiled Path. If you want a lot of information on this one, the Splinter Mind Dark Eldar podcast has had recently a State of the Harlequins episode, and our very own Tom Taylor Brigg, who is in our Facebook group, was a guest on that one, talking all about Veiled Path and how he likes to use it. I don't think it's necessarily a bad trait though, particularly nowadays when we get so many, combat, not necessarily combat-based armies, but armies that can get a huge amount of attacks in close combat. I mean, I'm sure all of you guys have been in that situation where you didn't quite make the damage output that you wanted to on your roll, and then you just get squashed by, intercessors and their gun butts. For things like this, I do think it's a reasonably good trait. I think it's actually gotten better with time rather than worse, like the Midnight Sorrow trait, and I think that it has certainly some interesting ramifications. So let's have a quick look at their specific stratagem. So, Capricious Reflections. Use the stratagem at the end of your opponent's charge phase. Select a Veiled Path unit from your army. That unit can immediately perform a heroic intervention as if it were a character. I actually really like this one. I think this has interesting ramifications. I think it's quite specific. It's a little bit, what's the word? It's difficult to know exactly when to use it, but you have to kind of line things up. So if you bait your opponent into charging something, then you can always have, 2 units always moving together so that you can basically charge into that unit straight afterwards and give it some support. I imagine this being quite good on something like, a big unit of 6 Haywire Bikes, for example. Problem being that you might not want to have your Haywire Bikes in the Veiled Path, so it's an interesting one. So it's still only a 3-inch movement, which is fairly limited. It's a shame you can't kind of up that, but I think it has some interesting gameplay options. So moving on to the Warlord traits, Webway Walker. During deployment, you can set your Warlord up in the Webway instead of placing them on the battlefield. Your Warlord can emerge at the end of any of your movement phases. Set them up anywhere on the battlefield more than 9 inches away from enemy units. Furthermore, you can use the Webway Assault stratagem twice. I like it, actually. I've toyed around with the idea of using this as, I think you have to build your army around it, and I've toyed around with it. I think this would be fantastic now that our Neurodisruptors are down to 5 points each. They're the only weapon that can kind of get some range out of deep strike mechanics, and they're not fantastic still for their points, but if you kitted out numerous 12-man troops with Neurodisruptors and melee weapons, and then you started just deep striking them around the place and just causing that sort of level of havoc, it might be an interesting tactic. We've sort of talked about it a little bit in the Discord. There's one of our group that would like to use the Veiled Path and has been sort of asking a little bit about tactics, and that would be something that I haven't tried out myself because I just don't have enough troops and I'm not going to kit them all out with Neurodisruptors, despite the fact that they look amazing. But I kind of feel like 3 big units of troops with Neurodisruptors here could actually potentially be an expensive but quite a quite a devastating little deep strike mechanic. The issue with this, of course, is stuff like Auspex Scan, other things now which can shoot our already pretty squishy troops very, very quickly. So that does make it a little bit difficult to find the right way of using this. The other thing that you might want to do is just have lots and lots of cheap objective grabbing troops with this, but I think abusing that deep strike mechanic is actually quite an interesting one for the Harlequins. So moving swiftly on, the relic that we have is the Mirror Stave. Veil Path Shadow Seer only. The Mirror Stave replaces the Bearer's Mist Stave and has the following profile. So the Mirror Stave shooting, 12-inch range, assault 6, strength star, we'll look at that in a moment, AP -1, damage 1. And the Mirror Stave melee, star, AP -1, D3 damage. Okay, so let's have a look at the ability, because that's what it's talking about in terms of its strength. So the wound roll required for this weapon in the shooting phase is equal to the target unit's unmodified ballistic skill. For example, if the weapon targets a unit with a ballistic skill of 3+, the weapon will wound on rolls of 3+. The wound roll required for this weapon in the fight phase is equal to the target unit's unmodified weapon skill. If the unit contains models with different ballistic skill, weapon skill characteristics, use the best characteristic in the unit. If the target's ballistic skill or weapon skill characteristic is dash, then the wound roll required is a 6+. This is a really weird weapon, but it can be quite useful against quite a few different things. Even in melee, just having it wound, on that 3+ or even on that 2+ against characters could be quite useful. And sort of the assault 6, range 12 element as well is quite useful against some of those hordes. Or even against things like Primaris or whatever else. So I do think it has game. It's an interesting weapon. Personally, I don't know if it's necessarily worth the relic slot. There are other players. If you're playing Veil Path, of course, take this. Why not? It's a decent weapon, but I'm not sure that I would necessarily choose them for this specific thing. They've got some interesting things. They've got some interesting ideas. I would say they were definitely the weakest when this book came out, but I think in some ways they've kind of gained some interesting strengths. I think the kind of units that you can do quite a few different things with this mask. As I say, they're either really abusing the deep strike mechanics to try and take those objectives in sort of the mid-game, or actually really trying to use it to deep strike big units of troops, potentially near a warlord with them as well. Unfortunately, this is the thing. I wish we could take an additional warlord trait. Maybe that will be something we get in the White Dwarf, but that might be hoping for too much. But if we could, and have that come down with a player of light troop master as well, that would just be so fantastic. I think a lot of the units that you're going to look at for this are larger troops, maybe, to try and make use of that melee based traits to try and get a little bit of reduction to that damage, and then also the Shadow Seer. So really trying to kind of get into melee as quickly as possible, get that Shadow Seer in there for the -1 to wound as well, and just trying to make your troops as durable as possible. Maybe even take the Webway Dance spell as well for that 6-up Feels No Pain, and really try and kind of capitalize on making your troops as durable as they possibly can be. But that's it. As I say, if that's all I've pretty much got to say about the Veiled Path. But if you are interested in finding out more, then check out Splinter Mind. They're a really, really good podcast anyway, and they do have some of the stuff on the Harlequins that they have some interesting ideas on that one, even though they usually focus more on the Dark Kin. Right, guys, thank you very much. That's today's video and today's mask. I'll be back tomorrow with the Frozen Stars, Juicy, one of my favourites. So I'll be back tomorrow with that one. Okay, see you then. Bye.